Hello, money queens and listeners. Welcome to Women Behind the Millions. Let's meet the women behind the millionaires, the women supporting, guiding, celebrating women with their wealth. You will hear from women millionaires, how they got there, what they wish they had known, what got them to be a millionaire, the emotional side, the spiritual side, the practical side of wealth. You'll also get to meet the women behind the scenes helping make it happen. Let's dive into Women Behind the Millions. I am Jessica Weaver, your host, best-selling author of 3 books, wealth advisor, and founder of the Women's Wealth Boutique. Let's start meeting the women. Hello, money queens. Hello, listeners. Welcome to Women Behind the Millions. I'm Jessica Weaver, your host. And today I'm very excited because we have Dr. Anita Jackson with us. She is a founder and CEO of Power Her Success Alliance and AMJ Productions Publications. She is a #1 best-selling author of several books, former senior executive producer for multiple online TV shows, major online networks, publisher of 2 internationally awarded magazines, and a former marriage and family therapist. So this is going to be juicy. We're going to talk about today the brain, especially the female brain, when it comes to wealth, abundance, and money. So thank you so much, Dr. Anita, for being on here with us today.
Hi, Jessica. Oh, I'm so honored to be here and excited to have this conversation with you as we inspire women, your audience specifically, around the world, what it means to be a wealthy woman. So I love it.
Oh, beautifully said. Yes, that's what we're about. That is our mission here. We got to get these ladies, women everywhere, the tools, the education, but just having conversations that elevate our thoughts, elevate our stories, our beliefs is the first step. It's so important. That's why we need to have people like you on here. What got you into thinking about the brain when it comes to money, prosperity, all of those good things?
Great question. Actually, so my background, as you said earlier on, is starting off about 32 years of experience in human development and business development. So I have a background as a marriage and family therapist and my doctorate in organizational psychology. So that's the business side. And along my journey, my academic career and my professional career, I have been very, very blessed to be trained and mentored by very successful individuals. And I lucked out in having 3 professors who were actual neurologists as well as psychologists. So they're the ones who turn, and that's rare. Typically, most neurologists are on the medical side. These 3, they were all men, chose to actually have the medical side and the psychological side because they wanted to have an understanding of the 2. And so I was very fascinated when they were teaching class and talking about how the brain works. And truly, I sometimes think I should have been a neurologist myself, go back to school. But then when you do the research to try to find out, how long would it take? If they told me it was going to take me another 8 years, I'm like, I'm out. I'm done.
I'm fascinated by it, but
not that much. And then the price point of it was a little intense just as well. So I'm like, yeah. And that's really how I went into the organizational psychology side. It's like, that's easier, that's cheaper, and I can get it done faster. So let's do it. So that's the direction I went in. So as the professors were teaching me about the brain, it helped me understand just how our chemicals run through our body, how energy runs through our body, how our brain processes information, how trauma, more specifically, or setbacks or disappointments, how that affects the brain just as well. And so over the years in working with thousands of individuals, the area that I noticed people struggling the most, women specifically, was in the area of their own self-worth. And that affected how they allowed themselves to make money. And I actually started to see that in my own life. I started to see that I was hitting a limit, if you will, a ceiling. I couldn't break it because there were some patterns of thinking and awarenesses that were slowly and unconsciously holding me back from going into my next level.
Oh, that's fascinating. I think we all know at time, or maybe we're in it right now, it feels like an invisible wall's up. Absolutely. And we just can't push through that invisible wall. What's it going to take? And what did you find was happening? How we're stuck in these patterns. We're stuck in that pattern of how much we can earn, how many people, and it almost feels like we're in this tunnel vision. We literally are only seeing opportunities that ring true to that pattern.
Okay. So here's what you need to know about the brain. The brain has three primary focuses.
Okay.
And one is to keep you safe.
Uh-huh.
Two is to conserve energy. And three is to actually make sure that you're prospering or you're moving, you're thriving. That's the word I'm looking for. You're thriving at the same time.
Okay.
So if it feels like anything you're focusing on doesn't meet those three areas, it will shut down to conserve energy. It will shut off to prevent you from doing something that doesn't keep you safe. So, for example,
Fascinating.
let's say you have been making $50,000 for the past 10 years, and all of a sudden you decide, I want to break into my six figure. So you're going from $50,000 a year to $100,000. That's another $50,000. Well, if you haven't really intentionally worked with you, Jessica, work with a financial planner or a person who can actually help you create the strategy for it, the brain doesn't think you know what to do to actually help you feel safe. So it will intentionally cause you to shut down, block things so that you don't do something it doesn't think is going to keep you safe. So right now, it doesn't believe that getting another $50,000 is going to help you feel safe, even though you're looking at it intellectually. It's saying, no, 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 because you don't know how to do this. You're not giving me the actual information that makes me feel safe, that you're going to be safe. And it's taking so much energy for you to figure this out. And that means you're trying to figure it out and it's not working. That's too much energy to keep you alive. Therefore, you're not feeling safe. I'm using too much energy and I don't think you're going to thrive. Shut down. And that's where the blocks come in.
Wow. It's like a short circuit.
Yeah, actually, that's exactly what happens. The brain, it shuts off.
You bring up so many points that I want to talk on. I feel like we need to reiterate this. And this is something that the listeners, you should listen to repeatedly because it's going to slowly sink in more and more, or you're going to catch yourself at that exact short circuit.
Yeah.
I feel, and now it makes sense, I almost feel like you're in this hangover.
Yeah.
Right? You've grown too much and now your body it wants to throw up in the toilet.
Yeah.
Intellectually, you know this is where you're supposed to be, but physically, as you said, that it's trying to keep us safe and it's taking too much energy, and we feel like a puddle on the ground.
I'll tell you, it's so interesting too, because COVID did me a favor. As horrible as it has been, it has also done me a favor. And what I mean by that is what I just explained to you was kind of my journey on different financial perspectives. So 2020, doing really well before the pandemic hit. Speaking was really how I got most of my clients. So I'm out there going to different events, speaking, and then all of a sudden, everything shut down, right? So there's no speaking opportunity, which means I don't have another stream of money coming in. And sometimes, as much as you think you're doing things right financially, if you don't have the background like you, Jessica, people don't really have a backup plan for their finances. They just typically don't have a savings account. They don't have any investments accounts. They don't have any assets in place. My CPA used to say this to me over and over again. He used to hate it when he said it. Anita, you make great money, but you have nothing to show for it. I'm like, oh, I don't need anything because you think you're young. And
the gut punch. You're working so hard.
And then all of a sudden, bam, you hit this crisis and you realize you don't have everything in place. And it was as difficult as it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me because it really made me go even deeper on the spiritual, on the energetic and the practical side of money. Like really working with a financial planner and my CPA and saying, I'm not making sound, wise financial decisions. I thought I was, but I'm really not because I'm not thinking long term. And within the African American cultures, or I'll even say within my family, let me just not say everybody, but within my family, that wasn't a conversation because everybody did well. So they didn't have the quote unquote trauma that we're having right now. And I, paid for school, paid for cars, always had the money, always was very responsible with my money. So it didn't make sense that I would have this experience until I had this experience. So that trauma caused me to exert more energy to try to figure things out, which actually started to create blocks. So I had to go back inside and go, okay, I need to forgive myself for not putting things in place originally so that piece can get healed.
Yes.
And once I forgave myself, I have to also say, it's okay, it's safe for me to make new decisions and work with a financial planner like you, Jessica, and begin to make a new decision. Once that kicked in and I really allowed that to be my truth, then things started to shift and doors started to open and higher level clients started to come in, more money started to come in. And now I'm like, okay, money's coming in. I'm going to start making some better decisions so that my money's working for me rather than me working so hard.
Yes. I love that saying, stop working for your money, let your money work for you. Or let your money control you. Like, let's control our money so it doesn't end up controlling us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you bring up so many points again. Forgiving yourself. Huge piece that we all have to do. I was listening to, it was a meditation earlier today. And for 10 minutes, it just repeated, I'm so sorry. I forgive you. I thank you. I love you. Over and over again. And at first, I'm like, this is silly. But then I got
a prayer.
And it was triggering and healing a lot of different pieces. So we forget we're so busy. We're moving from one task to the next. We're multitasking. We're doing 5 things at once. Yes. So we're trying to hit 5-year goals in 3 days.
Right.
We almost forget that there's a lot of hurt and pain in us.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially around money.
Yes. And Anita, it's not that you failed. It was the plan failed.
We thought having a plan. Let's just be honest. I didn't have a plan.
Well, sometimes the no plan is a no plan plan.
Yeah, it's no plan. Exactly.
Well, on the no plan, it's not that you failed, but we take it on as if we personally wanted to hurt ourselves. No, and to forgive yourself for that. Allow space for the healing.
I think we have to be willing. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think we have to be willing to not place it on our own sense of worth and value, but place it on our behaviors. Because behavior can change. You can change your behavior. You can which is why things changed for me. I chose to change my behavior. I made a very powerful decision. Decision, that's like my favorite word. And it means to reach a definite conclusion. In the Latin version, decision means to kill off something. Kill off that old way of thinking, that old way of behaving, those old procrastination patterns, because you're right, our brain functions on patterns. This is what keeps it safe. So if you are doing the same thing over and over again in your life, you're doing it in your money, guarantee you. And if you're doing it in your money's going to have the same results. Kind of like what Einstein said, doing something different or doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We do it towards money all the time. Well, we just put it here and then it doesn't work because you haven't taken a step back to reassess the land. And that's what, this pandemic did. So let me sit down and really look at, gosh, I'm making good money. I can see that I'm progressing. It's time to start taking that money and investing it the right way, because all it was doing right now was paying bills. That's not a way to live. It's just to pay bills.
It's hard to build wealth when everything's just going to bills and you get stuck in that survival mode. And what you keep referring to, right? It's short-term focus.
Yes.
Short-term focus.
Absolutely. And that's where I think we as women, because so often women are giving their finances, whatever they make, to the survival of the family. And she's not even taking care of herself. And 9 times out of 10, I'm sure you're probably I know I see it all the time. There's not a conversation I haven't had where that has not come up, where they feel guilty about using the money towards themselves. So let me give you a really powerful clue or cue in regards to guilt.
Yeah,
9 times. So the word guilt actually means, and let me ask you, what do you think guilt means? Instead of me just answering it.
So I was recently reading one of Mel Robbins' books, and I liked how she put guilt in 2 different ways. There's one guilt that if you feel this way, you're going to try to change your behaviors because you're taking on how other people are feeling. But then there's this other guilt that is more destructive and it's just really a shame.
Okay, you nailed it. So the actual definition of guilt is the feeling from committing a moral wrong. That's the number one definition of guilt. And women apply that to themselves so much. I'm like, you haven't done anything morally wrong in taking care of yourself. What you're feeling is shame. And that shame is such a low on the Dr. David Hawkins created a consciousness scale. And shame is a low level energy. So when you're thinking, I don't deserve something, I'm not good enough, it was just wrong for me to take care of myself, to want to go get a massage, to spend time with my girlfriends, to buy that new purse, because I'm a personaholic. I'm the first one to admit it. Or getting your nail done. I'm a nailaholic. I'm a hairaholic as well. So those are things I will not.
We all have those areas we are willing to spend money on.
No, those are non-negotiables for me. But anyways, when we feel this sense of shame, if you've been saying things like that, even just consciously, you're creating these neurological pathways, which is actually drops the energy of your brain, which means you can't focus, you can't concentrate, you can't process information. This is why, Jessica, 9 times out of 10, I bet you, maybe not you, but maybe other financial planners, when they're working with someone and they all of a sudden see that glazed over their clients, like they're looking at you, but they're really not paying attention to it. That's because shame, whether they know it or not, has kicked in about their money.
That is so scary. We talk about this. I'm fascinated on this conversation. I love what I feel like we're doing right now is marrying the spiritual side along with the scientific side, and that's the practical side, ladies.
Yes.
This is what we're doing right here. I love that there's this scientific proof and meaning behind everything that we've been talking about on this show, on this podcast. But that's amazing what shame does to people. And I see that glazed over look in people's eyes. And I saw it the other day when I was speaking in front of a room. It was a group, very large group of a women's organization. And I started to see it going on. And I have to think back to exactly what I was talking about at that time.
Yeah, think about what it was. I'm sure it had to be something about money unconsciously causes people to feel some level of shame, whether they're willing to put that word to it or not. So the minute you see that, cause them to stop. Okay.
The trigger.
Do me a favor, take a deep breath, have them take a deep breath. So the brain, because that's the brain's way of going into protect mode.
Oh,
it's trying to defense mode. It's trying to say, this is causing pain and disruption. So shut off so that you don't get hurt. That's what it's doing. It's protecting that person. So you have to, which means part of the brain, I'm not going into all the scientific details of it, but let's say this is your brain, and behind your brain there's a little stem. This little stem, which is your spinal cord, releases chemicals all day long, and it has a little flap on the top that regulates how the chemicals move through your brain so that you can focus and you can concentrate, so your senses work, so your heartbeat works, so blood runs through your body, keeps you alive. When you start to get into fear or anxiety or worry or doubt, that little flap that's on the spine. So this is your brain. Your brain's about this size. And let's say this is the stem. It's about that long. There's a little flap right about here that's constantly moving, allowing chemicals to come through. The moment you start to freeze, that parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and it goes click. And it actually stiffens so the chemicals don't get to the brain, because then the brain goes into fight or flight. That's what it's doing.
We've been talking about this a lot lately. I'm so glad you're bringing this up.
So there's a real biological issue that's happening. And the way you release it is breathe. Just breathe. And as soon as those chemicals get back in, they get re-engaged. Oh, so if you're seeing someone you're working with going, you know what, let's go for a walk. So now you're walking, having them walk while they're talking about it. So there's movement. There's oxygen, there's blood. That's
from all the advisors listening to this, money coaches, mentors. This is huge. Or how about talking to your spouse?
Yeah.
Talking to your spouse about
girlfriend. Your husband cuts off. Get him up. Take him outside.
Now we know why. It's not because we're boring him. He's starting to get freaked out.
It's pain. It's a defense mechanism of she's unhappy. I failed again. He may not ever say it. I failed again. I didn't do a good job. I'm not doing enough. Off. That's it. It's not about him not
Just
loving you.
explain so much about relationships and communication. Oh, I'm thinking about everything from divorce to estates, all of those high trigger conversations around money.
I used to do it all the time. My boss used to get upset with me because as a therapist, you're keeping them in the office. And I'm like, my office was near the back door. And I would tell her, I said, listen, if I've got a client who's in trauma, I can do better if I can get them moving. So she's like, all right, I'm just going to just act like you don't tell me this stuff. And I had the best results in the department because that's what I would do. I'd work with students. I had a private practice and I just feel, let's go outside. Huh? Let's go outside. Come on. And we go for a walk. And all of a sudden, they get the answers they need because the brain's actually functioning now. So your job, if you're working with someone who's having a financial problem, is if you can get them to talk about the problem, you can probably hear where they're stuck and how you can, because honestly, within 30 minutes, people will tell you exactly what they need. You just need to listen.
And we know too, when we're on the receiving end of that, and we're trying, all of a sudden we can't process anything anymore.
Oh, yeah. And see, I have a learning disability too. I have ADHD, so my brain's on fire. Like when they scan it, I'm on fire 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Even when I'm asleep, my brain's on fire. So it's constantly processing. So I've had to learn, thank you, COVID again, pandemic in a negative way. I've had to learn how to be still. I've had to learn how to meditate. I've had to learn how to be quiet so that my inner self, my God self, can bring up the answers that I need. Not that I didn't hear it before, but it's definitely much clearer now. And I'm feeling a lot safer within myself to make those decisions about what am I going to do next with money? What's the next thing? And this is where I'm like, okay, so this coming year, I've got 3 specific plans to make money work for me. So I'm not working so hard. And they're about consistent amount of money coming in. I set that goal. And it's the first time it feels really good. I still have to do my due diligence. I need to talk to a financial planner. I need to find, a CPA that can work with me as this money is coming in. Now it's time to make a better decision because now I'm so grounded within me. I'm not operating in fear, I'll say fear or shame. It's not that those things don't come in. I just now am more aware of it and I know how to release it faster than normal. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I want to, Bridges, you started to talk a little bit about calling in your higher self, that intuition, listening to ourselves, our guides. I've been talking with a lot of women advisors, women clients, the intuition. A lot of them are saying, I'm not very strong with my intuition. I'm not very good at the trust. Well, you just brought up exactly why. Because once they get triggered with the stress, we're blanking out.
Yeah.
We're not giving ourselves the space, which you said, but holding space to meditate, to quiet everything down. Because I say we busy ourselves to death to avoid the real issue happening in our lives. And by being busy, we think we're being productive, but are we being productive? No, we're not. We're still in avoidance mode. But you said it, and I feel sometimes God puts us in a timeout.
God.
You need to go sit over here.
Conversation on that one. I know that story very well.
COVID was a big timeout for a lot of us. Or we can choose to go put ourselves in a timeout. My kids know this because I go, Mommy's going in timeout.
Yeah.
And they're almost more scared when I go in timeout than when I put them in timeout.
Right. Like, where's she coming out? It's intuition. It's so interesting because intuition, I think, is really your God self. It's the higher part of you that knows everything, as we know. And it's not that you don't trust your intuition. Well, I could say a different way. It's not that you don't have intuition. That's what I'm trying to say. I think every person on this planet has intuition that already knows the answers that you need to live your best life, already has an answer for you. The problem is you've chosen, consciously or unconsciously, not to trust that because it has probably asked you to do things that didn't make you feel safe. It asks you to step outside of your limitations and your comfort zone, because that's usually what intuition does. It says, go here, trying to get you to go this way. You're like, no, there's a lion over there. I don't know what's around that corner. But since I don't know, I don't.
Scary.
Right. It's too scary. So then what happens is instead of taking responsibility within ourselves, saying, I did that, you say, I can't trust my intuition because it's not right. I'm like, you just chose not to listen. And since you didn't follow it through, which means if you're not following through here, there's a good chance you're not following through on some other areas of your life just as well. Promise you. Patterns. Everything operates in patterns.
Yes.
Seasons, days, and months, your calendar, your money, everything operates in patterns. And until you figure out what those patterns are, you're probably not going to change it too much. It's like, this is how PTSD develops to some degree, patterns. There's been trauma over and over again.
Yeah, and they're probably getting narrower and narrow.
Absolutely. And then they get solid. They get rock solid. Then your brain creates a neurological pathway. And now it's fired on that thought or that feeling or that belief or that emotion or that limiting belief over and over and over again. So that you now emit this energy that now attracts that experience over and over again. You can't break it until you get this conscious awareness of, this keeps happening to me. I keep hitting against the same wall. I keep attracting the same kind of man, the same kind of woman. I keep having the same kind of financial challenges. Why? That's when you connect to me or you connect to Jessica and we both go, you ready to really do some work? It's going to hurt a little bit, but it'll get you to the other side.
Well, they did a study, and I would love to hear your take on this, there was two brains. They did a brain scan, and the one brain, they were making an important financial decision alone. As you can imagine, the whole brain lit up red. It was stress. Yes, fire. Stress, fight or flight mode, right? We're the thing that she was talking about.
Don't ask me to say the medical term. I can't even pronounce it.
The other brain, they scanned, they were making an important financial decision, but with an advisor. A little piece of their brain, a little circle was red, and that was the part of the brain that deals with math, numbers, analyzing, very analytical piece. So it's showing that was working hard.
For a little fix.
Yeah, it was processing. But that's a huge difference. It's like, do we want to be under stress whenever we're making important decisions? If we do, which we know is not going to work out for us,
right?
But we'll do it alone. If we don't want to be in that way, that's why we're in business. That's why we're here having this conversation, because you don't have to make these important decisions alone and under stress.
Not supposed to. You weren't. I've been saying that a lot this week. You were not supposed to live life or make decisions about life alone. We weren't created to be independent. Now, there are some people who may have the gift of being alone, which means they're choosing to live their life that way. That's a different story. But I do not believe that we were placed on this planet to be alone. So the reason why that other person probably didn't have all those swirls of emotions going on in their brain during the time they were making that powerful decision is they had developed an intimate, safe, is that word again, relationship with their financial planner that allowed them to help them make the best decisions for themselves compared to someone who didn't have that kind of support whatsoever.
Yes. And this brings up to part of your journey when we talk about the forgiveness and then allowing yourself to get help, right? Giving yourself that space to forgive. And then that opens up space to bring people in to help because you don't feel so ashamed anymore or guilty. You've forgiven that.
I think we as women, so one of my topics that I speak on quite a bit is power for success. I think women need to get to the place where they're willing to give themselves permission to own their power, to make a new decision anytime they want to.
Anytime.
I don't think we give ourselves enough permission to say, I like that choice today. That doesn't feel, my intuition, my heart, my soul, my spirit, my energy, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel in alignment. I'm going to let that go and trust that. I'll give you a perfect example. I was in the process of purchasing a house And all of a sudden, things start to go south.
Oh,
So the house, of course, itself is gorgeous. Anita wanted this house. This house was everything I'd been looking for. I'd been looking for a house for about 2 years. I was even looking during COVID, not thinking I was going to do anything during that time. And yet finally found something. But then the company that I was working with kept changing the contract, kept changing deals. Just things just didn't feel right. And right before I had to sign my name on the dotted line, my something inside me said, don't do it.
Mhm.
Now, everyone else would say, are you crazy? You got the best deal. You know, you want a house. You've been talking about this forever. Why would you not do it? I'm like, just something is telling me it doesn't feel right. I don't have peace. And that has always been my plumb line. If I don't have peace about something, I'm not supposed to do it. So I canceled the deal. Well, beautiful thing. About a month, I'd say later, I ended up finding another house with another dealer, got better incentives, a better deal. They gave me all the appliances that I needed, like refrigerator, a microwave, all those other things, wood floors. It was even better, even a bigger house for less money. So see, because I could change my mind whenever I want to change my mind. That honored my life. And now I'm making and I'm going that process right now. I'm going to the
That's amazing.
process now.
That intuition, and it's almost like a muscle. We start to build.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that story. That's a huge piece of trusting your intuition, giving yourself space to be able to trust yourself in your gut. And you said there was a piece. I just want to point out to the listeners, there's a piece that comes with trusting your intuition. It doesn't mean it might not be scary or exciting or risk.
Right.
But overall, you still have a sense of peace that this is the right next step, the right next direction.
That's such a, I'm so glad you brought that up. Because how do you tell the difference between peace and scary if you're operating at the same time? Check your body. Your body's going to tell you. Because if you're really feeling peace, then your shoulders are going to be relaxed. If you're feeling scary, they're going to be tense, defense mode.
Oh, this is huge. If you have, and you can see, right? Your shoulders are by your ears.
Yeah.
Or your jaw's clenched, right?
So when you're working with somebody and all of a sudden the glaze comes in, or if they're looking at you and they're nodding and they're paying attention, but their shoulders are up, it's like an animal. When something's happening, the ears go up. Their hair on their skin goes up. That means something energetically is shifting. Pay attention to your body. Check in with your heart. If you're breathing hard, or if you're finding, you said it perfectly, because I'm a jaw person. That's when I know something's wrong. I get locked jaw, or I get migraine. Those are my signs. Okay, I'm not resting. I'm not grounded. I'm disconnected from my body. Lower back pains. Those are, if none of those things are there, just give yourself a quick little massage. If it feels tender or you feel little knots, that's stress. That means your body is not relaxed in that situation.
Yes. And stress will come out in a physical sense. It's gonna let us know it's here.
Absolutely. And then give yourself, thank your body. Thank you for giving me signs. You're doing exactly what you're designed to do.
So great way to put it.
Giving me a warning. Let me take a step back. Let me breathe. Let me ground. Let me close my eyes and say, what do you really want? And that first response, follow it, because that's probably the answer.
You've said so many amazing things today, Anita. Thank you for sharing. I think all of our advisors need to listen to this, because when we're talking with people, money is such an intimate conversation, and there's triggers, it's emotional. Looking at these clues so that we can hold space for people to feel safe.
Absolutely.
When we're having these conversations. So it's more productive and we're dealing with the actual issues, not just without the surface issues and things.
And check your own self when you're working with someone. Not only is that client maybe having some challenges, but are you having challenges too? Because we mirror each other without even knowing it. So, if I'm sitting here like this, Jessica may start doing it all unconsciously. And then we're both sitting here kind of tense, not even knowing we're tense because of that experience. It's the norm. And the only reason I could bring that up is someone brought that to my attention. I was walking around with upraised shoulders. And I'm like, but that makes so much sense. And it's taken me years to learn how to sit up straight, release the tension of that, and just allow myself to be open so things can flow in me as me and through me. Now, I have a strange little desk, so I have to sit kind of funky, but normally I sit straight and I've got a pretty good posture. And I really strive to keep myself as open as possible so I can, because openness is receiving. You want to receive money from your clients? Open up.
Open up, ladies.
Open up your heart, open up your being, watch all that energy. And as you open up, they're going to open up.
Because I'll mirror you. Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh.
Thank you for sharing all these amazing insights. I mean, the more we can understand the brain, the more powerful we really are going to be. How can people find you? Anita, how can they follow you, learn more about you?
Thank you so much. I'm so honored. You can always go to my website, which is www.dranitamjackson.com, or you can find me under my name, Dr. Anita M Jackson, on LinkedIn, and you can also find me on Facebook. Those are probably the fastest ways to get.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for being on here and sharing all these insights, strategies. It's going to improve all of our exposure to wealth, to welcome it, to forgive ourselves, to ask for the help, and to be able to be better assistance to other people going through their wealth journey. So thank you for being on here with us. Thank you to all of our listeners, all our money queens. We are so grateful for you to support Women Behind the Millions, because we want you to be part of the millions. We're women millionaires are about 32% of the population. We need to increase that. So thank you for being here and supporting all of us.
My pleasure. What an honor. Bye, everybody.